Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition here of the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. My name is Christopher Shepard. Thank you all for tuning in to today's show. And for our midweek show, it should be a good one. As always, we preview tomorrow night's big game in the NFC North. It's Thursday Night Football, Packers and Lions. Really important one in that division. So I'm going to have you all things covered from money lines to spreads to over-unders to even player props as well. We'll be concluding our positional rankings today as well with our defense and special teams units you have to look out for this weekend. Going to update you on the Heisman odds. I know a lot of people are saying this is a two-man race and it's all but over, but I still want to update you before we get into Conference Championship Week because one of these guys still has a chance to show out on that stage. And then, as always, we conclude today's show with our weekly Shatter Report, the key wide receiver cornerback matchups that will define the weekend in fantasy football. But as always, before we get into any of that good stuff, I do want to remind you that if you want to view more content just as this, consider liking, following, and subscribing to the show on the network. We also have a website. You can keep up to date with different segments we do for all of our shows and some interesting sports articles are there as well. Great people doing great things as always. But if you want to interact with our shows a little bit more directly while we're live streaming, consider making yourselves available to the Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features here on YouTube. They're a great way to contribute and interact. The show just makes it that much better. You can go to our website, gsmcpodcast.net, as well to do the same thing. Either leave a tip or donation or a comment, or you can do it right here on YouTube. It's easy, it's accessible, and most importantly, it gets your voice on air as well. But without further ado, let us jump right into today's show, starting off with tomorrow night's big game in perhaps the best division in the NFL right now. Packers taking on the Lions, and this game certainly feels like it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Obviously, everyone believes that the Lions are the team to beat in that division, sitting there at 11-1, the number one overall seed, in fact, in the NFC. A lot of people's number one team in a lot of their power rankings as well. But the Packers right now seem to have a certain advantage in terms of identity. And what I mean by that is, the Packers are a very versatile team. Yes, they haven't necessarily played anyone to the magnitude of Detroit just yet, and they're going to have a lot of divisional games down the stretch as well to determine whether or not I believe they're for real. But when we look at both of these teams and where they're at right now, they certainly seem to have an advantage in the run game, which seems a little bit weird, but let me explain why. When I compare both of these run games, obviously Detroit stands out just because of that two-headed monster in the backfield in Montgomery and Gibbs and what they can do. But we turn it on its head and look at the Packers' offense going up against this Lions defense. This Lions defense is decimated at key positions. The Packers are well equipped to attack. Looking at that linebacker core, you're down Alex Anzalone, you're down Malcolm Rodriguez now, and I'm not even sure who your third string guys are. Your secondary, yes, has been one of the better aspects of this team. It might be stressed out by this very versatile, volatile Packers receiving core. A lot of physical players, a lot of intriguing players out there as well. No true wide receiver ones to necessarily worry about, which could be a good or bad thing for them. But the most important factor in this entire offense is Josh Jacobs, in my opinion. This is a guy who can wear a defense out, especially a defense that has been decimated by injuries and doesn't necessarily have enough players to truly step up. And so that's why I'm a little bit worried and apprehensive to say this will be a complete and utter domination by the Detroit Lions, because of the fact that when I look at that defense and I look at the Packers' strengths and the ways they can utilize them in this game to sustain drives, most importantly, keep the ball away from that versatile Lions offense on the other side, is by running the football, by playing smash mouth football, trying to put as many points on the board as possible, and most importantly, make sure you win the time of possession battle. That's where this battle is going to be won. This is a classic battle of the trenches, and I think the Packers have the overwhelming advantage in terms of what they can do in the run game against this decimated Lions front. But on the Lions side of things, this offense is still going to be very prolific once they get the football. Yes, when we look at this Lions offense matching up with the Packers defense, Jared Goff seemingly needs to be more efficient than he's ever been this season because of the fact the Packers are the kings of the takeaways on the defensive side of the football. It's what they do in order to generate more possessions for their team, in order to flip the field position battle, and they know that their secondary can be super aggressive. But then again, when I look at the matchups here, when I look at how the Lions utilize different people outside of their running backs, we're going to have a big say in this game as well. Guys like Amon-Ra, guys like Jameson Williams have been coming on these past couple of weeks. A guy like Sam Laporta, who's a very physical presence, but can also be a great inline route runner, a great seam stretcher for you as well. I think that the Lions would feel like they can stretch this defense, whether vertically or horizontally, because of the weapons they have. For example, in third and short situations, Jared Goff's most likely going to be looking for Amon-Ra. Amon-Ra is a very precise route runner in short yardage situations. If you want to take the deep shot, I think Jameson Williams is going to have the top end speed to technically try and go out there and try and make something happen down the field. In the middle of the field, Sam Laporta can feast as well. He's going to really be aggressive with these Packers linebackers who, in my opinion, are not necessarily the strongest unit for the Packers, but certainly do have depth pieces that I really like, but not against this guy in Sam Laporta, who's going to be really physical with you, is very exploitative in certain coverage situations, and thus can have a big impact in this one. And of course, you also have to worry about the run game as well. And you also have to worry about blocking and potentially penetrating that offensive line. You're going to have to worry about a lot of matchups on that front. And I feel like, if the Packers front really steps up, there are chances to be had in terms of sacking Jared Goff, generating pressure on him, forcing him out of structure. And that's also going to be key because when Jared Goff is given time in the backfield, chances are he can pick you apart because he's that kind of guy now. He's not someone who is going to scramble for the first down. Not someone who's looking to do that either. He's someone who seemingly fits so well in this offensive scheme that any of his deficiencies are masked. So that's why he's so difficult to truly interpret in terms of how you have to defend him. And when I think about the Packers, I think more about their takeaways stemming from covering on the back end. Guys like Jair Alexander and Xavier McKinney. Not necessarily from forcing quarterbacks into bad decisions from your front. Not to say that this Packers front isn't necessarily deep. I like some of their players up front, like Devontae Campbell. I actually don't necessarily know if they still have guys like Devontae Campbell there, but they have pieces up front who I really think could be able to generate enough pressure against this very tough, physical Detroit line. But it's going to come down to these corners on the back end going up against these very versatile receivers, trying to generate takeaways as they always do. Because Jared Goff is too smart of a quarterback to fall into the trap of trying to perform out of structure. Their only way to generate takeaways or win the field position battle is by generating sacks. Not to say that interceptions and long returns aren't necessarily a good thing. I do feel like you have to find more ways to win the field position battle. You can't just rely on Jair Alexander and Xavier McKinney in this one because you know how deep this Lions skill position group is. So you're going to have to find different ways to win the field position battle outside of just Alexander and McKinney. But then let's get into the betting because this game feels like it could have gone one way. It feels like all the momentum could have been on Detroit's side. But Vegas is now respecting the Packers and respecting their situation, understanding this is going to be a tight one. Detroit is only favored by 3.5 at home. The over-under is 51.5. Detroit minus 185 in terms of money lines. Green Bay plus 155. So as you can see, it's not just because it's a divisional matchup. It's because it's going to be a physical one that I really don't know if the Lions will pull away in. Because of the fact, like I said, this defensive front now worries me more than bolsters my case to pick the Lions outright. Because when I think about it, I think that about the Packers as a team that can also attack you in so many ways in this division. You don't necessarily know if they're going to want to control this one with Josh Jacobs or utilize their weapons to the best of their abilities. Because they're that deep at the wide receiver position, you can throw the football and have success there. Yes, Jordan Love has been inconsistent in terms of throwing the football this season, but you know that his weapons are versatile enough that when they get the ball in their hands, they can produce for him and thus kind of reduce and account for and compensate for the mistakes Love makes. So that's why I feel like, in terms of picking this game and trying to predict it, I feel like I have to give respect to what the Packers can bring. So I'm going to say, kind of reluctantly, that Detroit is going to win this one, but not necessarily handily. I think this is also going to be more of a defensive-minded game in terms of how they're going to game plan for each other, just because I feel like Detroit's going to want to cover up the mess that is their defense right now, whereas the Packers are also going to want to be aggressive on the defense side of the football and try and find some way to slow down Goff's rhythm. So that's why I feel like this game is going to be a little bit more tight. That being said, I'm going to say Detroit wins this one 28-26. I feel like there are going to be a couple big defensive plays that are going to swing this one, especially with the cornerback talent that we have in this one, the secondary talent that we have in this one. So expect a lot of nice long interception returns potentially, but I'm going to take Detroit 28-26, but the Packers will cover in this one because they have a slight advantage in terms of being able to pressure this Lions defense. It's just a matter of keeping up with what the Lions offense is going to be able to produce. Let me know what you think about this game as well, because we're going to be continuing to talk about it when we come back after this short break, talking about some player props and who could be big impacts in this one as well. So we're going to continue this after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?